and let us all do we can to build a better future.
So, the Biden-Harris administration is just struggling getting voters. And I'm proud to say, look, Gen Z, hey, I was a little worried about you. I'm still kind of a little bit worried, but no, listen, I'm not going to do what corporate media did to millennials. No, again, please don't fall into the trap of voting Democrat, okay? I get that Trump's a bad, spooky, orange Cheeto clown, but remember, he used to be a Democrat, and there was a Clintons that told him it was a good idea to run in 2015, okay? So he was pushed into the game, okay? He was all, we got Trump because of many reasons. But don't ever think that the Democrats got you back, okay? Because the Democrats have screwed over voters for years. For years. This has been going on long before you were born. Hell, it was going on long before I was born. So there you go. That's how long they've been playing this game. So let's talk about it. It's the Democratic primary. I want to pull up this video from Fox News, of all places. Even though they are hemorrhaging viewers, they still somewhat get the point. How sad is it that, we're getting kind of somewhat real, quote unquote, real facts about what's happening with the Democratic primary run. And be very clear here. Look, I'm not voting Democrat. I know there's fans of RFK Jr. or Marianne Williamson in our audience, or, people who vote Democrat. I get it. But don't waste your hard-earned money for the DNC. They don't have free and fair elections. They don't do that. So let's talk about what's going to happen if potentially RFK Jr. and, yes, even Marianne Williamson continue to pull high in this early stages of the Democratic primary. Again, anything can happen. Anything can and will happen. So let's pull up this video. Shout out to Case Study QB. Be sure to follow him on Twitter.
Talked about on the show on 5 the other day, he and Marianne Williamson are probably not the most serious of candidates that could run against Joe Biden in a primary, yet they're polling somewhere combined between 25 and 30%. I'm a believer that if we're 6 weeks from today and they both are polling at the same levels or a little higher or in the same category, you're going to find different candidates in the Democratic Party wanting to run, believing that the vulnerabilities that President Biden has in his own party are so severe and high that maybe they should. I happen to agree with you that you can't imagine. I think he's a serious guy, Robert F. Kennedy. He's done serious things in his life, but his candidacy is not one that I take seriously.
And see, that's a mistake. Now, look, I still have to call on a lot of questions about RFK Jr. and really how serious he's going to be. And if you're a supporter of his campaign, look, you might like what he's tweeting out or posting on social media or some of the interviews he has done. If he's really not going to go toe-to-toe and go further than what Bernie Sanders did with the Democratic primary and what the convention is going to do, then a lot of people are going to be wasting their time and money. All right? But Biden is vulnerable. Everybody sees it. It's like that scene from Game of Thrones, or House of the Dragon from Game of Thrones, when the king is saying, "Who's saying my daughter's children aren't legitimate?" And the king's son says, "Father, we all know. Everybody knows that those are not her husband's kids, that she's seeing some dude on the side." All right. That's not the word verbatim, but he's saying, like, everybody knows. Everybody knows. You can't hide it. How many press conferences have you seen Joe Biden do? How many long 1 hour or 2 hour speeches have you seen Joe Biden do? Not a whole lot. He's vulnerable.
If you're in the White House, you have to take seriously that he's polling at 20%. He's polling at 20% against an incumbent president who is ready to run against Donald Trump. And even in that same poll, it shows that Donald Trump is now ahead of Joe Biden in that head-to-head matchup. So this could lead to something else. If not, Joe Biden's got to get out and start telling his story. If not, he'll find himself, I think, in a bigger heap of trouble.
So I'll pull up this other video here as well. Now, again, there is possibility that the DNC knows this. Now, again, the Democratic Party, they're filled with idiots, okay? Same thing with the Republican Party. But there's going to be that one or group of people that are going to say, hey, this Biden is a senile old goat. We need somebody else like Michelle Obama, a people or that Gavin Newsom. I want to pull up this video here.
To your point, Mark, very interesting idea that this is sort of a rigged poll. More Republicans than Democrats were polled. When you've ever seen a survey that had more Republicans than I know, no one's talking about it.
Washington
Look at the numbers.
Post, ABC poll?
Yep.
Wow.
I know. Not by a big margin, but by a few.
So this is a dump Biden campaign.
I think it was authorized.
The question is for whom?
Ooh.
Who's the next person?
Well, good question.
Do
What-
Yeah, well, the thing is, like, they want to make sure it's going to be somebody. Notice that, again, if it's Kamala, it's going to be an epic disaster. She's not popular. And before any of K-Hive or Vote Blue, no matter who feels like typing in the comment section below, just remember, Kamala started off with this huge bang in 2019 and then went away. Farted in the wind, disappeared. Her campaign went belly up, bankrupt. And she got destroyed not once but twice by Tulsi Gabbard in debates. 0 delegates. And oh, yeah, she got in as being VP, but that's about it. Since then, not popular, hemorrhaging staff members, and so much more. And side note, Tulsi Gabbard was the last woman candidate in the Democratic primary. She outlasted Elizabeth Warren, Klobuchar, and yes, Kamala Harris. So there you go.
So you got Robert Kennedy Jr. in there polling
Yes.
around 20. What's the other one? Williamson, whatever she was.
Marianne Williamson.
Marianne Williamson. Who's
Yeah.
the next? So what are they going to do? Who will the Washington? Let's go there. Who will the Washington Post try to push?
All right, these are crazy answers, but the Democrats actually think these are great candidates. They'll push Michelle Obama. They'll push Pete Buttigieg, maybe even Gavin Newsom.
Mm-hmm.
And again, all three sound like a bad idea. Hell, it wouldn't surprise me if the DNC dusts off Hillary Clinton. Bring her back in the fight. So there you go. I want to pull up this last video here, and this is kind of giving me a little bit of hope, and especially for Gen Z. All right? Gen Z, I just want you guys to know they'll screw you over like they did the boomers, Gen Xers, and millennials, okay? They'll do the same thing to you. So it's your job and the next generation's job to break away from the two-party system. It's too late for the rest of us, but it's not too late for you. Because Biden's approval drops among young progressives. Don't let Trump derangement syndrome get the better of you. This system is already sick and corrupt as it is. So let's pull up this final video from Case Study QB.
President Biden's latest approval ratings are weak as he launches his re-election campaign. And that's especially true of one key constituency, young progressive voters aged 18 to 29. Eva's been doing a lot of
and listen, you guys are doing this, right? Young people. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. It means you're seeing the system of what it's doing, student debt, what it does to veterans, the system with endless wars, how it's been screwing over people, how it's treating the elderly. You got to see it. Everyone has to see it. The ship is sinking, and our politicians are leading us there. So no, don't vote Republican. Don't do that. And sure as hell don't vote Democrat. Support citizen ballot initiatives. Start supporting movements and organizations not connected to Washington, D.C. Start supporting third parties, independents, etc., etc., etc. Don't waste your time on the Democratic Party or Republican Party. They don't like you, they don't think about you, and they don't respect you.
Of reporting on this. So, Eva, why are young progressives souring on the president?
So me and my colleague, Gregory Krieg, we spoke to young activists across the country, and essentially they feel as though they aren't being listened to, or they are being engaged at the White House, but they describe these interactions as perfunctory. One of the key issues was this Alaska drilling project that the administration approved. Now, the administration will say...
Now, it's just more just drilling. You know, it's also about student debt. Again, young people don't go to college here in America. I'm not telling you not to go to academia or university. Just don't do it here in the United States. Go to a trade school, apprenticeship program. Go to community college. It's fine. It's fine. All right? Look, the ship is sinking. You don't owe this system anything. It's time to start asking what your government's going to start doing for you, because they ain't doing jack for you. Break away from it.
That was already in the pipeline, and no pun intended, and that they had to do it. But also there have been some other high-profile reversals as well, Allison, on public safety issues as well as immigration. And they are telling us it is not enough for the White House, for President Biden to keep telling, and Democrats at large, to keep telling these young people, consider the alternative. You know, they have to come with a compelling, inspiring message.
Well, is that true, Eva? Because if let's say it's a race between President Biden and President Trump, these young progressives, they're not going to vote for President Trump, right? So what would they do?
Vote independent, vote third party. Support citizen ballot initiatives. It doesn't matter who sits on the throne, okay? I know that's a controversial statement to say, but it doesn't matter who's president of the United States, because you want to know who's going to be dictating and controlling the policies? The banks, Wall Street executives, the top 1%. I am so sorry, but this is very true. It doesn't matter. The same people who donate to the Democratic Party also donate to the Republican Party. You do not have a seat at the goddamn table. This is the truth. And I know a lot of people are going to be yelling at you. How dare you not vote Democrat? We got to stop Trump. We really want change. It doesn't matter who sits in the White House. It comes to us, the people. Now, we could have had a real movement if Bernie Sanders wasn't a cuck, but he allowed his supporters to be abused by corporate media and the Democratic Party. He turned a blind eye to election fraud, and the squad, they're not going to fight. Nothing fundamentally changed under Biden. The kids are still in cages. We lost Roe v. Wade. Do you remember? Young people, everybody, all generations. Remember when everyone was saying, oh, if we lose Roe v. Wade, we're protesting the streets until the cows come home, and that ain't happening. But the Democratic Party was careful enough to send you guys emails saying, hey, can you hook me up with $15? I promise I'll use it responsibly.
To sit it out? Is that what they're saying?
Well, they could sit home. They could stay at home. And,
yep.
You know, it is,
and that's fine.
I think that also we're sort of hearing that there is this skepticism about the effectiveness of the electoral process, right? I voted and I'm seeing the erosion of reproductive rights. Now, Republicans, though, are talking about, I think, some of the issues dear to this constituency in a way that is so problematic that it might push them to the other side. So, for instance, when we talk about trans youth, these young people, if you are a young person in this country, you are more likely to know someone who is trans, have someone who is trans in your family. You're not talking about them in the abstract. And so these very vicious attacks that we see on trans folks across the country, that is deeply personal to these voters. And so they could be so outraged by that on the other side that it may prompt them to support President Biden and Democrats. But
Democrats don't care about women's reproductive rights. Democrats don't care about student debt forgiveness. Democrats don't care about medical bankruptcy. Democrats don't care about the LGBTQ community. Democrats don't care about black voters, Latino voters. Democrats don't care about the kids in cages. They don't care. I'm going to keep on saying this. These politicians don't care. If they really wanted to make our lives better, they would have done it decades ago. They would have been fighting for us. Has anything really changed? I know Trump is coming back. The orange boogeyman, the Saturday morning cartoon villain, he's coming back, and he's going to trigger so many people. But to anyone that was part of those protests against Trump during those 4 years of 2016 and 2020, you're just living out a fantasy and trying to make your lives relevant. I remember those protests. They always were the same in Chicago. Starting somewhere in downtown area by Daley Plaza, Federal Plaza, somewhere around that area, right? And then the police would coordinate off the roads and people would be marching, protesting. And then I remember one protest in particular, I stepped out of line. This was in the early days of Hardlands Media. This video's on our Facebook page. I was filming the crowd marching. And what did they do? They were being herded in there like sheep. Into a little cage area to protest against Trump Tower that's right across the Chicago River. I get that Trump triggers people, but we got to be a little bit smarter here. Just a little bit smarter here.
it might not be enough.
Harry, are the numbers reflecting that?
I mean, frankly, Joe Biden's approval rating among young voters, they stink. I mean, that's an adjective I'd use to describe it. But ultimately, I think the question that you posed is the key question, which is how do these approval ratings translate into voting patterns. And what we saw in 2022 was that Joe Biden's approval ratings among young voters, they were similarly bad. But what actually happened in the polls? It turns out that Democrats more than held their own among voters under the age of 30. And it's exactly the reason you pointed out, which is that consider the alternative. Now, the big question, again, is do they actually turn out? Because, right, we don't have compulsory voting in this country. You actually have to go out and cast a ballot. And when it comes to the polling, what we generally see is that while enthusiasm is lacking, Democrats at this particular point say they are as likely to cast a ballot or about as likely to cast a ballot as Republicans are. So I certainly agree that young voters may not like Joe Biden, but they hate Donald Trump, and that may be enough.
Don't let fear get the better of you, because it doesn't matter who sits in the White House. The kids are still in cages. Remember that? That was a pretty big deal. Do you see AOC doing those protests still? You see any of these politicians really fighting? Did Bernie get any of his demands from the Biden-Harris campaign in 2020? No, none of that happened. None of that happened at all. So what's the incentive of voting Democrat when you know nothing's going to get done? It's like an abusive partner just spitting in your face, cheating on you, taking your money. You keep on crawling back. Don't you have dignity?
And the White House knows that they have work to do on this. We spoke to them as well. They pointed out that this Next Gen group did endorse the president. They are huge Gen Z voting mobilization.
Meaning already
effort.
for this next election, they've already endorsed.
They've already endorsed him. So they did note that. And they said that they are speaking to social media influencers.
Oh, yes. The social media influencers. Yeah. I've seen those videos. Those guys saying, yeah, we got to vote for Biden. Woo! God, man. Guys, all those influencers all hyped up. Hyped up. And you're like, hey, you got to vote for Biden. They're speaking so super fast. 30-second video. TikTok, vote Biden. Speaking fast. Super fast, like Sonic the Hedgehog.
And then they're also engaging with grassroots gun safety organizations that's an issue that's really important to young people. And so they are attacking this problem. They recognize it is a vulnerability.
And the biggest advantage of all that the president has is that he doesn't have a significant primary challenger. He would really be in trouble if, say, Bernie Sanders, for example, decided that he was going to challenge.
Oh, fuck you. Seriously? Bernie the cuck? Bernie Sanders? Him? Oh yeah, boy. I'm actually glad that he's not running. All right, because it would have just been tic-tac-toe 3 in a row, failure. That's what Bernie Sanders would be. All right. What did Bernie do? I'm gonna support my good friend Joe, even though he was on the wrong side of history during the civil rights movement. I'm gonna support him.
Challenge him. A lot of these young voters, and that's an interesting thing. He is almost as old as the president, but young voters still gravitated to him because of his policies. So that's what the White House really is thankful for every single day.
Is Bernie Sanders going to launch a campaign?
No, he's endorsed the president. In fact, I was in Michigan last week talking to a voter who said her vote for Joe Biden was specifically to stop Donald Trump. And she's
to stop Donald Trump. I one time was at a party with a couple of my friends, right? And there was a friend of a friend there, and somehow the conversation got to politics. And Daniel had a similar situation too at a different party. All right, so I'm gonna bring up Daniel's story right first. Daniel mentioned Donald Trump's name, and this was at an event. I wasn't there, but he mentioned this. As soon as he mentioned Donald Trump's name, this person just froze up and was like, "Please, that name triggers me." And they calmed down. Please, they got frozen. They honestly, the name Donald Trump was just froze them. Like they were like a deer in headlights. My story, again, I don't know how I brought up Trump's name. Again, this was a while ago. And you remember that meme, Dawson's Creek, where the guy cries like the famous, like sad face. Like they actually made that kind of face. Like, don't say his name. It hurts to think about Trump's name. They made that face. I'm like, you let that dude live rent free in your head. Look, he's still running for president, my lovelies. That's what's going to be happening.
He's going to vote for Joe Biden again because Bernie Sanders endorsed him. I said, really? And she said, absolutely. So I do think that the biggest advantage the White House has, and they know it, and they probably, he probably says a prayer every night, that there's not a big primary challenge, because we've seen what happens historically when presidents have primary challenges. Jimmy Carter, George H.W. Bush, it is tough for them in the general.
But when
And so we're going to stop here. To everybody, boomers, Gen Xers, millennials, Gen Z, I don't care the color of your skin or who you worship or hell, who you vote for. The two-party system does not have a seat for you at the table. Hell, they don't even have a kids' table seat for you. They're not even going to tell you to wait outside. They're going to keep you at home waiting that someday you'll be invited. But that ain't going to happen. That ain't going to happen at all. So, folks, no matter what happens during this election cycle, don't let people bully you or fearmonger you into thinking you got to vote Democrat or Republican. The two-party system is one big club, and you will never be in it.